basket or some box, so that someone will pick the mandazi, and if it's 1 ringgit, he will drop it without going without paying it. So that surprised me, because I will imagine in Kenya, if you put a desk of soda outside here, believing that people will drop in that basket 20 shillings, and if it's a change, and if it's change, someone gets the change and moves on. But that shocked me. But as we are speaking about ethics, I came across somebody who actually revealed the cost of corruption or unethical behavior. And actually he made it clear that the cost of quality assurance is the cost of corruption. So assuming there is a farmer who is supplying milk, and if there is trust, and if there is ethical behavior, this product should not go through quality assurance, because you don't expect the farmer to add water or mix with that white substance to increase the amount of yield he's selling to the market. So ideally, if that is done, when we have to employ quality assurance, then it means the cost of the product goes up because there is lack of trust, or there is a perception of unethical behavior in whatever is happening. So I've come to understand that if, for example, we have to employ invigilators in a class, it's because we don't trust your students. We'll expect maybe if that cost will be shelved, we give you a paper, you do it without checking or opening your phones and all that, and that will bring some few, discount to your fee. But generally, that is the issue that we are grappling with. As much as we may want to have the quality assurance to check on the quality, but in essence, that is how we get the cost of the goods going up, because we don't trust you. So I'm hoping our main speaker will be able to elaborate this on our discussion further. We'll be able to bring this to light. Thank you.
Another clap for Dr. Zephania Tafadhali. I think we can already feel the temperature rising. Now that you have been told the reason we have invigilators is because, unfortunately, you do not trust us. But moving on quickly, I will now move over the program to the, should I say, highest ranking person in the room in this institution, who will now introduce our chief guest. So this would be the ample time to introduce myself, lest you forget who I am. My name is Caleb Nyaga. I am a student of communication and multimedia journalism here at Riara University. I am in my 4th year of study, and I am delighted to be your moderator and MC for today. So moving forward, please, Professor Robert Gateru, the coolest VC in Kenya. Karibu sana.
When you say cool, you don't know the temperature that I operate under. Our keynote speaker, Dr. David Oginde, FCS Bishop, FCS Nanakimani. Thank you very much for being with us today. We are very, very grateful. My colleagues and fellow students, good afternoon. You know you're the coolest students. Awesome. Appreciate yourselves. So it's really good to be here, to have all our partners from EACC and from the Network of Ethics and Leadership. For us here at Riara, and I'll not speak much because of time, we want to recover the time that we have lost, and it will be after this, we'll give to our keynote speaker, and then we'll have some Q&A. Riara University was formed under the foundation of values and ethics. And if you read our foundation documents, it's part of our core values is leading by example. And leading by example was chosen very deliberately because it is very easy to point fingers, and it's very easy to say somebody should do. But what happens when it is your turn to do? For me, I long for a time where, as Dr. Opati said, that during the market days that we normally have here, we normally have market days where students who are entrepreneurial, they come and exhibit their products and people buy and they network among themselves. That you would leave your merchandise there with a price tag, leave a bowl there with some cash for people to get change, and you will come and you collect your money and nobody will take away anything. But I have to really appreciate and commend the Riara University community. Bishop, we've had people here who have collected money and they have declared that money to the Dean of Students for them to look for the owner of that money. And I think we need to appreciate yourselves. We have had people who have picked phones and other devices. Instead of going away with them, they declare them so that the owner, the rightful owner, can be found. And that's what we hope to be able to inculcate within our students. So Riara University is part of a wider network called the Education Collaborative. I was telling our guests. And the Education Collaborative is a part of an African-wide network that is looking to train 1.1 million ethical African leaders by the year 2030. And we are very deliberate in terms of how we want to do it because at the campus level, you guys as students, you're on the verge of going into the world of work. And now the people that you've been pointing fingers at now will be your colleagues. And you will be those people. So how do you behave now when you go to that space where there is a mixture of all manner of values? So there's a course that we are piloting within the Education Collaborative. It's called Giving Voice to Values. How do you give a voice to your value system so that it is not drowned by the so many other voices that come around you saying this is the right way, follow it. Whereas deep inside you, you know the right way to follow it. About invigilation, the Education Collaborative was established at a university in Ghana called Ashesi University. So Ashesi University, they have an honor code, just the way we have an honor code here at Riara. For them, if a student signs into the honor code, when it comes to the exam time, the students on the honor system are put in a separate room, and you're given your exams. There are no invigilators. It is happening at Ashesi University in Ghana. If you decide to cheat, it is up to you, but you have as per your values. And I look forward to that day. So we'll continue these conversations, and we are very delighted to have two key persons with us today. They have shaped the landscape of different ways, and the keynote speaker holds a very, maybe unenviable position of being the chair of EACC. But we were having a conversation with him and the guests, and really to see the scale of the task at hand. It cannot be done by one institution. It requires all of us. I think during graduation, I told students as they were going out and I was speaking about ethics, I talked about a meme that I saw somewhere, which says, that a thief who has no opportunity to steal thinks he's an honest man. A thief who has no opportunity to steal thinks he or she is an honest man. What happens is when that opportunity presents itself, will you stand to be counted? And I hope and pray that Riara students and Riara graduates will stand to be counted on the side of the right thing and on the side of justice. Sawa sawa. I'm done with my remarks, so if you are clapping, you can clap there. Now, allow me to introduce our keynote speaker. I wish I could do it as well as Caleb. There's a way he was doing it very, very well. I'll try. So our keynote speaker today is Dr. David Oginde, PhD, FCS. Dr. David Oginde is the chairman of the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, known as EACC, which is the official government agency constitutionally mandated to promote values and ethics and combat corruption and economic crimes in Kenya. Dr. Oginde is a thought leader on matters of leadership and governance. He is the founder of the Catalyst Associates, a leadership development firm that runs courses, coaching, and consultancy for individuals and organizations. He holds a PhD in organizational leadership from Regent University in the USA, a Master of Arts in Leadership from Pan-African Christian University, and a Bachelor of Architecture from the University of Nairobi. How many knew he has done architecture? He is a certified mediator and a fellow of the Institute of Certified Secretaries, the same as FCS Bwana Kimani. Dr. Oginde has a passion for value-driven leadership and has led many training workshops and seminars for corporates, government, and non-profit institutions on various aspects of leadership and governance. He teaches PhD students in organizational leadership at Pan-African Christian University and runs a popular fortnightly program called the Leadership Forum on Hope FM. And I invite you to tune in and listen in to the wonderful conversations that go on in the Leadership Forum on Hope FM. He has published numerous books and written very many articles in various leadership journals. Dr. Oginde is the immediate former presiding bishop of Christ is the Answer Ministries, CITAM, where he held several organizational transformation initiatives, placing CITAM as a cutting-edge institution. He is also the founding chair of the Council of the Mama Ngina University College, a constituent college of Kenyatta University. He is the vice chair of the Association of Evangelicals in Africa. He's married to a wonderful lady, Nancy, and they have been blessed with 2 young adult children. Let's welcome Dr. David Oginde, Chairman.
Thank you, Professor. Yeah. Thank you very much for your introduction, but more so for the invitation to be part of this great initiative this afternoon. I'm honored to be invited to be a keynote speaker. I just used to hear about keynote speakers. I didn't know that one day I will be one. So thank you for giving me that opportunity. I'll add to my CV, keynote speaker of Riara University. Thank you very much, and thank you, Bwana Kimani and Zephaniah, for your remarks that have set the tone for this afternoon. May I greet you, good afternoon. Good afternoon. Thank you very much. Before I speak, let me introduce my colleague who came with me. I'll give her opportunity. Maybe you can come and just greet the people.
The Vice Chancellor, the guests who are here, management of the university and students, good afternoon. I'm Joyce Monene. I'm an assistant director for coordination and partnerships at the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. I'm glad to be here. I'm a product of mentorship, so kindly take mentorship seriously. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Joyce. So Joyce is one of our directors, assistant director at ESCC, and we work together in the office of the chair. One time I was invited to speak to students at the University of Nairobi, my former university, and I had forgotten how old I was. So I was saying, the other day when I was here, and this and that was happening. So when I mentioned when I was there, they all just looked at me like, what do you mean? And then recently, I had some fundis who were working for me, and there was this guy who was fixing the ceiling. So I was giving them instruction, and because of my architectural background, which he didn't know I had, I was giving him instructions and showing what to do and so on. So he asked me, Mzee, unajua hizi vitu sana? It's like, you really know these things. So I told him, that's what I studied at the university. He said, what? When were you in the university? So I told him when I was. He said, my mother was not born. So, well, I'm not that old, but maybe some of you, your moms were not born when I was at the university. I joined the University of Nairobi in 1980. Was your mother born? I can see a few people shaking their heads. And I left in 1986 when I graduated after 6 years in the School of Architecture. When I was there, it was a totally different time from where we are today. Issues of ethics and integrity were not issues that were so much discussed. I remember when we went to do exams and so on, it was not a big deal. You rarely heard that students have plagiarized, other people's work. Those are things we never used to hear about. You just did your work, and it was your work, and it was done, and there was no other issue about it. Even theft within the campus, which is now so prevalent in many campuses, was not something that we talked about. One would say it's because we had boom, so you don't need to, but people who steal are actually some of the richest people in the country. So stealing is not a matter of whether you have or you don't have, but it's a matter of a state of your mind. Have you decided, just like we have been told? Two examples that we have been given by our two speakers here, which I can relate to. When I was doing my master's in the US, at orientation in that university, we were told, among many other things, but we were told that the library is a self-help library. So there are no attendants to help you. So you just go, and it was a huge, huge library. And so you go in, you pick books, you go and stamp the date, which was normally 2 weeks. You stamp the date, you're supposed to return it. And when you return it, there was a ball also there. Even you are late, by every day you give $1. And it is up to you to pay or not pay. So if you are late with a book for 3 days, for 5 days, for 7 days, you know what to pay. And you saw people faithfully putting $7, $5 into the bowl as they returned the books. So one time we were doing a class of ethics, and we asked the professor why this process. And this was a Christian university. So he said, you know, we used to have attendance at our library, and we were losing so many books. And so we kept adding rules and rules on how to govern how people take books and return them. Then one time in our meeting, we thought to ourselves, we are a Christian university, and we are training people who are supposed to go out there and live by Christian values. But we treat them here like they are thugs. No wonder they behave like so. So we decided we are going to remove all those, and those who want to steal, they are free to steal. And those who are ethical, because we have trained them and taught them, we will do so. So that's how we removed all this. Even the cafeteria was self-service. You go in, pay for your food, and you take it away. And he said that from the time they instituted that program of self-help at the library, the number of books that they lost went drastically down. He said, in fact, one time there was a student from India who had forgotten and went with the books, some of the books that he had borrowed, and shipped them back to the library, and together with a penalty that was supposed to have been paid. That would never have happened in the previous system and model, because there's a satisfaction that someone gains from beating the system, you know, from just beating the system. Sometimes you don't want to steal, but because you have been told not to take, you have the urge to take. Young people, it is a great opportunity for us to shape our values. And it is possible to shape values and to be agents of transformation. And if there is going to be any hope for our country, our continent, and our world, it is going to come through you who are the younger generation that have now come to be known as Gen Zs and the millennials. If you do not make a change, if you do not propagate change, let me tell you, your life is going to be more miserable. Right now, our police is in Haiti. Why? Because Haiti has gone to the place where there is lawlessness. The gangs have taken over the country. I was in China just about in October, last month actually, early October, in a global conference of anti-corruption. And among the people who were there were Haitians. They were actually sitting just in front of us. You know, just seeing them, you know, you feel like, in fact, I told them, you people look so normal, you know. It's like I don't know what I was expecting Haitians to look like. But there they were, and they were very excited to learn that we are Kenyans. In fact, they said, we have to meet with you and just thank you for sending your people to come and help us in Haiti. And they told us of what is going on there, and it is very, very sad, because the nation slid into this situation of lawlessness ever so slowly. It did not happen overnight. It was a slow slide where laws, rules, regulations are not adhered to. And corruption took root, so that even if you did the wrong thing, you only needed to pay some money to give something, and then that is forgotten. And that's how that country has slid to the place where the government cannot function properly, because the gangs have taken over that country and they're the ones ruling the day, to the extent that we as Kenyans have had to donate our police officers to go and assist in that situation. And just for our sake as Kenyans, these two people, two Haitians, say that our team has made a difference as at the time that we were meeting with them in October. And that was great to hear from, for me as a Kenyan, because you know the kind of discussions that were there before they went. So it means that if we also do not do what we need to do, our country could easily find itself in the same place. According to our national census report released by the National Bureau of Statistics in 2020, over 60% of our country, of our population, is of young people. And with over 55% in our learning institutions. This demographic tells us that the young people are the future of our nation. And if they take the right direction, it means that we have hope. But if they take the wrong direction, then we are in trouble. Because with such numbers, we can reshape our society. If we harness this potential, we can transform this country. We would like to encourage each and every one of us who is here today that we work together towards addressing the challenges that face us as a society. And I'm glad to hear, Professor, as you say, what you have said about Riara University and the ethical standards that you are inculcating in our young people here, to the extent that they can serve mandazis out there and things are okay. You know, you just mentioned that I was founding chair of Mama Ngina University, which is a public university. I was appointed to lead the team, the council that was starting this university. And when we sat down to do our strategic plan for that university and which direction this university should take, we were thinking we want to be innovative, we want a university that is that and that. We explored all kinds of special courses that we would introduce that no other university is doing, you know, to give us that distinction. And I can tell you it was difficult because almost every subject we thought about was being offered in another university. Every other program was being offered in another university. And so we got back to say, what then is going to be our distinctive as a university that would set us apart from other universities? Ultimately, we said, this country is lacking in ethics and integrity. Employers are looking for men and women of integrity in every sector. So if we are going to supply our country with a workforce, what we need to focus on is ethics and integrity. And so we said, we want Mama Ngina University, just like you have done in Riara, that any graduate that comes out of there will be known, whatever course you have done, whatever career you pursue, whatever profession you take, that you will be known as a man or woman of integrity. The world is looking for such people, young people. And so we said we want right from the beginning to instill and inculcate values and integrity in our students. And so we talked with our principal and said, this is something we want to start with because we have the opportunity to start a new university. We want to start with it right away. Within just the first semester, we were amazed as the reports we were getting. Because as the students came for orientation, they were given certain principles and standards that they were to follow as a university. And our expectation that they were going to be men and women of integrity. And we told them why we had chosen that direction. That there are many graduates out there on the streets. You know that. Many graduates. 5 years, some 10 years, 3 years. Since they graduated, they cannot get jobs. And they have brilliant young men and women. They cannot get jobs. So the market is getting more and more saturated with people who are clever, people who are gifted, people who are skilled. But society is still looking for people of integrity. Those people are scarce. So if you distinguish yourself as a man or woman of integrity, you will not miss a job. Because people are looking for such men and women who stand out. If you're a professor, you're VC, you're a registrar, the person you have served with can give a letter and say, this is a man or woman, a young man or young woman, who you can depend on, who you can trust. You can entrust the things that you are doing to them, and you can go to sleep knowing that they will take good care. Those people will not lack jobs, because the world is now saturated by men and women who are only seeking for shortcuts. And that opportunity for you to demonstrate is available, and you start it while you are here, because it's a choice that you make. As part of our mandate as Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, we are dedicated to public education, raising awareness on ethics. And that's why institutions like this that have committed themselves to prioritize ethics and integrity, we feel proud to be associated with you and to partner with you in the same. We have instituted clubs that are champions for integrity in schools, in universities, in colleges, so that we can begin to raise a new generation that is founded on moral principles, that can stand against the tide that is against us. You have the power to do so. As you know, I have a bishop background, and I have, from the Bible, I can give you examples of young men and women who are recorded for us. There's a man called Daniel. Daniel was a young person, just like yourself, who was captured during the Hamas war and taken captive into a foreign land, you know. And while he was out there in Babylon, the king was recruiting young, brilliant men. There were no women, unfortunately. He was recruiting brilliant men who he could train so that they could lead the nation in the future. Among those people were 4 Hebrew boys. One of them was Daniel. And the Bible tells us that when Daniel went into this space, because of the foundation that he had laid as a young person, he refused to be part of the things that were happening in Babylon. When eventually he graduated and he was enlisted into the government, the Bible tells us that no corruption was found in him. The consequence of that is Daniel served under 4 different kings. It is difficult to serve in one king. But he served under 4 different kings, beginning with Nebuchadnezzar, Darius, Cyrus, and others. Why? Because of integrity. And so we want to encourage you to make this as part of your resolution. And integrity is not a collective thing. Integrity is not a collective thing. Riara University may set the foundations for moral practice, for ethical practice, for integrity. That does not make you a man or woman of integrity. Integrity and ethics is a personal choice. It's a matter you decide for yourself while you are still young, that this is the path I am going to follow. And so we as in ESCC, our task is to try and raise. I know people know us only for chasing police officers who have taken bribes. People know us for taking people to court for crossing the line of ethics. But one of our major mandates also is to bring education and collaborate with others on matters of integrity and ethics. And so we want to encourage you to be people who can help us in this particular area. Young people have been used across the history to bring about change and transformation in society. Because young people have an amazing power to drive change. Throughout history, young people have played significant roles in bringing about national transformation in various countries. Their energy, enthusiasm, and innovative thinking have been catalysts for positive change in a wide range of fields across the world. Consider, for example, at the height of apartheid, when the black community in South Africa had absolutely no rights, Steve Biko arose as a young but key figure in the black consciousness movement, which aimed to empower black South Africans and raise awareness about their rights and their identity. He was tragically killed while in police custody in 1977 at the age of 30. He had started as a much younger age in moving this needle on the matter of apartheid. In the same context, Nelson Mandela started his involvement in the anti-apartheid struggle in South Africa in his 20s and continued to be a central figure for decades. He played a significant role in the anti-apartheid struggle throughout his life, eventually becoming president at over age 90. Consistency, standing for your values. Winston Churchill was a fierce opponent of tyranny and totalitarianism. He entered the British Parliament at age 25 with a passion to transform society. His early political career, the purpose for which he entered politics was because he was sick and tired of seeing what the Nazis were doing in the world. And so he got to that place where he actually became prime minister and led a war that conquered Nazi Germany in World War II. In the same context, moved by the suffering of slaves in his time, William Wilberforce joined politics and entered the British Parliament at age 21. He fought hard against slavery and entered the annals of history for his role in the abolition of transatlantic slave trade and restored order. Some of you may have watched the documentary on William Wilberforce, a very moving documentary on his life and the struggle that he had to bring about change when the consciousness of the people had actually died, so that they saw Africans only as items. They were not human beings. But William Wilberforce stood up and said, this cannot continue. And there are many, many other examples. Many of us may not know a young man called Joshua Wong, a pro-democracy activist in Hong Kong not too long ago. if you are up to date with international news, you would know that there was an umbrella movement. Some of you may have heard about it. It's Joshua Wong who started this protest in 2014 and continued vocal advocacy for ethics and moving against corruption in his own country. The lesson we learn from these examples is that there are many young people full of ideas and full of energy that can turn ideas into practice. You have what it takes, and you are not afraid, as we noticed recently, to face issues and to stand against bullets. How can we use that strength to bring about change in the area of ethics and integrity? Our moral fabric as a society, as I said, is being eroded every day. Radicalization, violent extremism, drug addiction, and many other things that are happening among us. And usually the people who are targeted are young people. How can you take a stand as a person at a personal level? You need to recognize that it is only when you make that personal choice that you can bring about change. Otherwise, you'll be swept by the peer influence. Many of our young people today are engaged in evil, not because they are evil themselves, or because they want to be in evil themselves, but because they want to fit in with their peers. And so you find them in drugs, you find them in violence, you find them in all kinds of evil practices only because they want to fit in. I hear there's something called FOMO. You know about FOMO? The fear of missing out. So you get engaged in these things because of the fear of missing out. We want you to be people who can remain sincere and true to yourself, hardworking, hopeful, patriotic, and focused. And this is what will guarantee you a future that will bring you a great success. Participation in leadership is another area that you can get involved in, regardless of your age. When you have convictions, you can provide leadership. A leadership that is committed and that comes out to stand for values. When I was a student at the University of Nairobi, we had riots almost every other week, and the university was closed every other week. So you come back, the university opens, before you even open your box, you are out again. So it got so bad. I remember one time I was arriving home with my suitcase in the village. And this person, who has never even seen the inside of a university, looked at me and said, "Kwani, we sent you there to be rioting?" I felt so small. With all my university education, a person who has not gone to school was scolding me for the riots. I decided to do something about it. When we came back, I was a Christian Union chairman of the university. And I approached our fellow Christian Union members and said, we have to change how things are happening in the university. Those days, Christians and politics were never supposed to meet anywhere. You know? So even student politics, those of us who are Christians, we stayed as far away as possible. But I said, we cannot be suffering in the hands of people who do not have values. So we agreed that in the next university student election, we are going to sponsor a Christian who we know has values and ethics so that he can stand as the chairman of the student organization of University of Nairobi. For you to do that, you needed 100, for you to stand for, you need to be nominated by 100 students. So I mobilized the Christian Union to provide the 100 nominating votes for this young man whom we had observed. And he won because we went all out and voted for him. And he won the elections. Some of you may have heard his name, Titus Adungosi. Titus Adungosi was nominated and encouraged to enter into politics by myself and fellow Christian Union leaders who are tired of riots of every 2 weeks, every 1 month. In the 1 year that Titus Adungosi was chair, we never went home once. Because he led people with values and integrity. There was a way in which he knew how to talk to students. He became such a good friend and partner with the VC, Professor Mbidi. And that was the best season of our time at the university. It is unfortunate that soon after, in 1982, we had the attempted coup. And unfortunately, he was arrested, framed up, put in prison. Unfortunately, he died there. It is possible to transform a nation. It is possible to transform your community. It is possible to transform if you are a person of values and ethics. And we want to call upon you to be that kind of a person. This is your great opportunity. Don't follow in the ways of others. The innovations that we see around us are led by young men and young women who are thinkers. I'm sure you are aware that M-Pesa, as we know it today, was an original idea conceived by a young person from one of our local universities. And it remains as the best mobile money transfer in the world, right here from Kenya. I was in Romania one time, several years back, and to my surprise, on the day that I arrived in Romania, they were launching M-Pesa, complete with the name. Vodafone was launching M-Pesa in Romania, in Bucharest, as a mobile transfer service. I felt so proud to be a Kenyan. You have the opportunity to make a difference in our society. As I close, it is very sad that in a Kenya Youth Survey in 2016, up to 50% of young people said they have no problem getting rich through tax evasion and corruption as long as they were not caught. That's what I think one of our speakers talked about. That a thief thinks he is what? He is ethical. Because he has no opportunity. So some of us are ethical only because we don't have the opportunity. We want to encourage you to be ethical, even if you have the opportunity. We are seeing an upsurge in plagiarism among our university students, a rise in people using fake certificates. Right now, where Joyce and I work, fake certificates is like a pandemic that we are dealing with. In fact, perhaps we should deal with it the way we dealt with COVID-19, because it is prevalent across the board. Senior positions, you have been reading some of the people we have been arresting. Senior people to junior people. Fake certificates. People who do not want to sit in a university like you have sat, but who want the jobs that you should be getting. And so by the time you are coming out, you find that they have occupied the space that you should have been occupying having traveled this journey of education. But then they go somewhere in River Road, get their certificates prepared, and they come and present those to employers, and they take jobs that should be yours. It's a pandemic that we are dealing with even right now. This kind of mindset is what is going to destroy us as a nation. No nation in the world has ever grown through shortcuts, through corruption, through gambling, through fake certificates. Great nations are those who have prioritized hard work founded on honesty, on trust, and on integrity. I want to thank you, but call upon you. Ethics and integrity may not give you immediate rewards, but it builds for you a deep reservoir from which you will drink for years until you die. Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you for such a powerful speech, Dr. Oginde. So the next part of the program, thank you to, first of all, the audience that has stayed with us. We are about to move into the final parts of the program where we will have a panel consisting of our 3 speakers, where you will also get the chance, because I know some of you have been itching to ask questions to the guests. So before we start, I'd like us to, I want you to help me do something. We're going to applause them, but in a different way. So I'd like you to lift up your index finger, your right or your left hand, if you can. Lift up your index finger and lift up your palm. And I want you to clap once. And then lift up your middle finger and clap twice. And then your ring finger and clap thrice. And then the small finger and clap 4 times. And then finally the thumb and clap finally. The lesson that we can learn from this is you cannot change everything as a person. Kenya, the world, the institutions, organizations, environments are all changed by all of us when we come together as a whole. All right? So I would like to welcome the speakers to join us. So Dr. Zephaniah, please, from the far right, if you may take your seat. Please clap for him as he walks to the stage. And then Mr. Kimani, you may walk to the stage as well. Karibu sana. Please, endeleeni kupiga makofi, msichoke. And then finally, Dr. David, you may take your seat as well. Right. And now it's my chance to sit. Yes, clap for me, clap for me, clap for me. Thank you. So once again, thank you very much for joining us for this event. If you are coming in right now to G15, we are in the ethics and leadership in the face of emerging generations, the Gen Z and millennials shift. So we're going to start off in a very simple manner. And I'll start with you, Dr. Don't worry, we are sharing the microphone. I'm in the presence of greatness. I'd like to ask you, what does ethics mean to you?
Mean to me or mean? Mean to you. Oh, mean to me. Okay. Ethics, for me, it means that I follow the right standards and do the right thing, irrespective of where I find myself. So as an ethical person, I do what I know is right, even when I am alone. That's what ethics means to me.
I like that you mentioned that, because that takes me, I think, a couple of years back when I was in primary school. And I am very young, by the way. And there's this program that ESCC was doing around primary schools, and they were supplying magazines. And the 2 things I can say for sure, I remember, well, 3. There was the loyalty pledge, which I can say for certain I do not remember. But my parents tell me that it was a big deal back in the day. And there was a national anthem, and there was a definition of integrity which said, integrity is doing the right thing even when no one is watching. It was that simple.
Yes.
For school children, and I find it is still the same way even as I'm keeping on growing all that. Integrity is just doing the right thing even when no one is watching. And Dr. Zephaniah, to bring in the concept of integrity and ethics, when you were giving your opening remarks, you said you went to Malaysia and, well, you gave us the scenario there. That reminded me of something that I would like to argue, kutembea kwingi ndio kuona mengi, sio kuishi kwingi. So do you think Kenyan institutions or Kenya itself as a whole will get to a point where we can actually achieve that level of honesty and integrity and ethics in our country?
Yes, I think we can. One of the things that can help us is molding, because people tend to copy good examples. It might not register like what Dr. Oginde said immediately, but the long-term gain is very important, because when people can see people with integrity, for example, in leadership, doing the right thing, kids will observe this. You'll be molding, that kind of behavior. And once we have a champion in several areas, we have a champion in education, a champion in finance, a champion in sports, people tend to model towards this. And it becomes now easier, because now you're raising up voices, you're raising up people who are now able to stand for themselves, but they have a role model which they can emulate. And that is now a ripple effect across. Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Kimani, you had just found us to look at Shans. Welcome back. I have one question for you specifically, given that you have been in the ethics circles for quite some time now. When it comes to the unique ethical challenges that the new generation presents, which is now the Gen Z and the millennials, there's a shifting landscape in especially the workplaces and in the environments around us, whether we're working, institutions as well. What are these challenges that dealing with ethical factors when it comes to young people, the Gen Z and millennials? What are the challenges that are presented with the new generation now, considered what Dr. Oginde referred to as the people working with? No, it's a prof. Prof said we will be working with these people that we point fingers at in the coming years. So what are the challenges that, the Gen Z and the millennials bring into these spaces?
I hope I have understood the question. And the way I've understood the question is, if those Gen Zs are now the leaders as an ethical lot, what challenges are you going to face?
Yep. You're on the right track. You are.
All right. Yeah. Let me start by saying this, that you will be a lonely person as an ethical practitioner. There are very few ethical people in this nation. And if I overstate that, I'm sure somebody has the statistics. So if you stand out as an ethical person, and especially as a young man, you must know that you are very lonely, you are isolated, you are unpopular, and you have many other adjectives which those who are not like you would describe you as. You will find it difficult to get a job to start with, because you'll be required to pay for it while you should get it free and on the basis of your ethical practice, which is unpopular. The second thing is, there are people who are looking for ethical young people. And that is the the quarter or the constituency from which you should draw, and especially if you are Riala, you are known as an ethical university, or a university which practices ethics, as it is coming out from your talk. So if you are lucky and get that job, you know that the sky is not the limit. You are unique, and everyone will be looking, you will be headhunted to be the next, to hold the next position that requires ethical practices. The other thing, and this is not a threat, is that because you are very few, you are easy to spot, and your life is at risk, and you know it. We have lost good ethical practices through very mysterious circumstances. Somebody just disappears. So your life is also at risk. So that's the price you have to pay. Not everyone suffers. It's not a threat. You will still survive it, but you will be the only one who walks out of that otherwise heavily populated with unethical people with your shoulders high and not having to look behind your shoulders. No one is looking for you for the wrongs you have done. The vanity thing, they are looking for you to put you where you belong. And where you belong is where the people with ethics, who practice ethic, are very few, but they are there. They are there. They are there, and they enjoy their lives. Let me say something finally. Hopefully, it's still to do with that question.
Please go ahead. No
People
problem.
who are not unethical live a very, and without integrity, live a very anxious life. Anxiety and stress are the precursors to depression. And the depressions are forerunners of suicides and murders. I don't know whether you got that. Very many people who are not ethical die soon. And you can reflect back, and if you know, and I'm sure you know some, have they lived very long and they are still enjoying life? I'll stop at that, but I can speak some more.
Thank you. Coming back to you, Bishop, Dr. Zephaniah and Mr. Kimani have emphasized on the young generation and ethical people being few. And if you will allow me, I'd like to pull a reference from the Bible, now that you have a Christian background, that says, the harvest is plenty, but the workers are few. So when it comes to the organizations in Kenya right now, from your vantage position as the chairperson of the EACC, how can organizations foster ethics and integrity systems that are able to accommodate young generation, the young generation that is coming in, and are also able to curb these issues that are happening all over the country? Because seeing a corruption case, seeing an anti-ethics case is a norm in the news nowadays. So how do organizations, institutions even, and even governments, how do they come up with systems and ways to curb issues when it comes to matters anti-ethics and corruption?
I'll answer your question from the two perspectives. I'll answer your question from two perspectives. One, let me start with an institution that, like RIARA, that is committed to bringing up graduates who are ethical. If with time, as an institution here, you are successful in inculcating ethics and integrity in your students, that will set you apart as an institution for parents who are seeking to get their children into a place where they can be safe, a safe environment, that's what they say. They know that there'll be no drugs, there'll be no cheating, there will be no immorality, and all those things. Parents from the beginning want their children in such spaces. If you prove yourself that you can help these young people to come out as men and women of integrity, employers will be camping at your gate to look for these people. Because the world out there is so bad that if I knew that I only need to go to Riara University and whoever I pick from there, apart from the skills that they have developed and learned in whichever field they are learning, they are also coming with integrity. I can tell you for a fact you'll be a harvest field that many, many employers will come to. And I can give you examples where that kind of thing is happening. So as an institution, you need to cultivate a reputation of developing and churning out graduates who are ethical. And that will only be proven when, what did you say your name was? Caleb. When Caleb goes out there into an organization, into government, and proves himself as a man who can stand on the things that he learned while he was here at Riara. If he does that, and another person does that, and another person does that, your graduates will not tarmac, not even for a month. They will be got from here. That's how serious. I do a lot of leadership training. And there's a survey we do in one of the classes to just identify. We ask the students, the participants, what is the greatest virtue you would expect of a great leader? And it is just as random as that. And we say, use only one word. Only one word. The greatest virtue that you expect of a great leader. And everywhere we have done this, without fail, integrity comes number one. Integrity comes number one. So it tells you this is a commodity that everybody is looking for. So if you can prove yourself to be that, you will go very far. As an individual, but even as an institution. The second angle to the question you ask is how organizations out there, I thought I heard you ask, how can we create an environment that nurtures young people of integrity? Is that what I heard you asking? It is a very difficult environment, but what I have just said about the institution of learning is also the same of other institutions. How many of us want to do business with people? When you buy a product, you can't be sure that it is real. Say you want to buy a phone costing you 100 and something thousand. A pretty good investment. How many of you would go somewhere where you are not sure that this phone, whether this phone is real or fake, whether it's genuine? How many of you would go to such a shop? If you're spending maybe 300 shillings, yes. But if you're investing 100,000 to buy this phone, you want to be sure that you are buying it from a company that will give you a genuine gadget. It is true for business. Any business that runs on ethics and integrity thrives across the globe. They thrive. Once you know that any product I buy from this person or any service I get from these people is legit, you go back over and over again. So we encourage organizations, particularly public organizations, because that's our main mandate, but even private organizations, that they can create an environment where a person like yourself, when you go in there, then you are not struggling as the loner, trying to do the right thing when everybody else is doing the wrong thing. Unfortunately, that is the reality in many places, but there are organizations that are, for sure, promoting ethics, integrity, and they are very firm on any breaches that come from their staff members. So I believe that when you go out there, you will find such places. But start it right here. Start it right here. Let you be known as a man of integrity.
All right, thank you.
Yes.
As much as it is a challenge to us as students, I'm happy that Prof is here. He has heard that it is his responsibility to market Riara University and that it churns out students who have integrity, which it does.
Yes.
Dr. Zephaniah, you are an educator and you spend a lot of time with students. And I can say for certain, because I'm a student here, that there are courses that are offered and units that are embedded in the academic program regarding ethics and integrity. So in your years of teaching, what would you say is understanding, and do we really understand as the Gen Z, as the young generation rather, do we understand the impact ethics, integrity has on ourselves as personal people, as a personality to the person, and additionally, as professionals once we are out of this institution? Would you say that it is something that we grasp before we leave the university? All right, Mr. Kema, you can give him the microphone.
Okay, I may want to believe one of the greatest, and I think I meet this a lot, one of the greatest places where students get to understand, or not just a student, any person tend to understand the role of ethics in a society is at home. And I believe that's one of the major challenges that we have. So if your parents are not ethical, and now you come to this institution and you find there are certain parameters that we have to adhere to, you find it's very strange. And I think that is one of the problems that we have in Kenya. Because I mentioned, for example, in Malaysia, part of what they do in terms of ethics is the raising of the religious. It's a Muslim nation. So I remember at one time I was going to church, and the cab I was using, because they use the meter to charge you. So the more you stay in that vehicle, the more you're charged. So this guy, instead of taking me directly to the church where I was going to, it was on a Sunday, he took me around because I didn't know the place very well. But when, because my pastor was meeting me there when I was there, so when he asked about the bill, and the pastor saw that the bill was too high, he just said, haram. And the guy wanted to return our money because he actually had pricked his conscience. So you see, he as a cab driver was able to get that point that whatever I'm doing now is unethical by just a word. Because sometimes we tend to take advantage when Prof saying that nobody's watching. But when it comes into play, when you're looking at those factors, or somebody can be able just to tell you or just direct you that whatever you're doing is wrong, there can be that remorse, and someone can see this is truly a remorseful person. And that's what I'm saying. When you look at how we want to mold, we rather start it at home, the institution. I usually give example of my father at home, in class. time is never an issue to me. Very rarely will you see me late by even 5 minutes, because I was trained by my father, because what he used to do, he used to come with a car at 6 p.m. and tell us, whoever is ready, we are going to pick mom. So at 6 p.m., all of you will be clothed, ready, waiting for him. So you see, that is the molding I was talking about. So that now, if you're coming here also as an institution, and you also have the parameters, the setting, the policies of molding a Riara University student that is ethical in whatever we do, in terms of time management, integrity in the exam, integrity in assignments, by 4 years, at least there is some sense that has come to you. As much as you may be off there, but there is that element that will be ingrained in you. So for me, I think if we can stick to molding, we have a role example, like what we've seen here. We've seen cases where people have flatly refused money to change a grade. And you see it comes from the top. So if the VC is doing something wrong, everyone down here will know. Even if he speaks it, everyone down here will know whatever he's speaking is just words. But whatever he does behind the scenes is different. So even with that fear that if the VC can hear of this I know from the faculty, that can land someone in trouble, then that element of just getting to the mold of having ethical behavior will get on. So when you come also to students, when we integrate all these aspects of it, and I usually tell, most of you are here, when, for example, yesterday you drank and you came and you said, I missed the cut because I was drunk, surely I will tell you, I'll give you a makeup, because you're telling the truth. So there's no way I should punish you, but you actually came and saying, sincerely, I'm apologizing, this is what happened. But now when you come with all sorts of stories, you see, now you're making my heart hard. So that for me is the important bit of it, that if we can be able to mold, and a student will be able to come out here. I've seen several of them asking for references, from very big PWCs, such kind of things. And now you're able now to know, even this student, if I send out a recommendation, I'm so sure you will be able to put the best in the organization there. So I hope I've answered your question.
Yes, you have.
Okay,
thank you so much. Before we give the next round of questions to Mr. Kimani, I'd like to remind the audience that we will be picking a few questions from you that will be directed to the guests. So please prepare yourselves with your questions and be as inquisitive as you can be. It is a rare chance that we get to have them here at our disposal. Mr. Kimani, you have interacted with government officials from your bio in the county government, and you have been around leaders. When it comes to mentorship of the young generation, the Gen Zs and the millennials, do you think a good job is being done? Do you think there is any job being done in terms of mentorship in the first place? And what do you think we should continue doing in terms of mentorship specifically for the young generation with the leaders that we have right now? Not necessarily political leaders, but also leaders who are not political, executives, even lecturers like Mr. Patti. Do you think that there is a good job being done when it comes to mentorship?
Thank you once again. I think the answer you want to hear is yes. But a lot of it is yes, but also a qualified yes, because first of all, if you are mentoring, and I'm a mentor, I don't know whether you read that out in my... young people are very receptive. They are very sensitive to what mentors, and mentors are usually older, more experienced, many times more educated, what they tell the young people. They retain what they hear from those who have traveled the journey ahead of them. So I would say yes, and a very strong yes, that the job is good. People are changing and following what you mentor them to do. But you must populate your mentorship with relevant examples. There are mentors who will occupy the space because mentoring is a good thing, but you can't mentor if you are not yourself an example of what you are telling the mentee. And when you are a mentor, you take a very heavy responsibility of what the mentee turns out to be. It's a sad day if the mentee doesn't tend to change. But there are difficult areas. For example, it's very overwhelming that the way things are done in Kenya are also overwhelmingly hopeless, many of them. So if you are mentoring somebody to be ethical and those who are ethical are not benefiting from their kind of practice, then you have an uphill. But you must insist, you must persist, and give your own example of how you have lived your life and other examples. And the many mentees turn up. I think, Dr. you know that we have a mentorship program at the Institute of Secretaries. And we have evidence that those who have been mentored by senior people, especially in the practice, in the profession, and also experience in age, have changed and are doing well in the society. We are very proud of that. So I think the answer is mainly yes, but not 100% because of other environmental and circumstantial forces. Because Mwalimu here touched on parents, I want to say something very quickly, if you don't mind. Hoping I have answered.
Yes, you have.
About parenting. That parenting are very powerful source of, they are very authoritative in bringing up children, and just like the Bible says, the way they should go. And I'll give you my own example. When I was parenting, even now I'm parenting, you never stop parenting. I'm 77, you can't believe I'm parenting more than, yes, not in order.
I thought we were age mates.
And I can tell you, I can assure you that parents are so authoritative in what they tell their children at whatever age that no one else is likely to change a person if the parents have failed. It's very unlikely. But of course, there are examples I know of children who have come up of very not so very good parents, but they have decided I'll not be like my father, and so on and so forth. When I was bringing up when my children were younger, and they were of age to get driving licenses, and I think, Doctor, it's God's grace, because I didn't know about ethics as value as the way I do now. Everybody who got a driving license those years had to bribe. At least everyone I knew had to bribe. I had my wife and 4 others who were looking for licenses, and our policy was that we shall not bribe, no matter how long it takes. We didn't bribe. I know for sure, even the person who examined some of my children was a family friend, and he asked for a bribe. That made us even stronger. There is one of my sons, I'm not so sure whether he got it legitimately, but he keeps telling me, Dad, I didn't. But I didn't give him money. And I tell you, that is so founded, that's so strongly founded that that's what they cite everywhere they go. That's what they cite when they bring up their own children, and they will not take their children to a school which is not like RIARA because it's unethical. So those of us who are here as parents, please know that that child becomes what they see you do and say every day. Every day. And don't give up even if they go wayward. And that is because they are also exposed to other influences. But when they come back home and when they take the life stretch, they will come back to what you taught them. So my children keep confessing, and that here I know here I didn't. But they still come and confess, and we laugh about it. But are they not still children of integrity? So I just thought I would rub that in.
Thank you. Yes, please, feel free to clap. Teach up a child in the way he shall go, and he shall never depart from it. So for you, Bishop, finally, as we come to the close of this brief panel session, what next? What next for the young generation that is walking into a country that, truthfully speaking, has a lot of issues when it comes to ethics and corruption? What next for government when it comes to the role that EACC plays? And what's next for the future of the nation?
Interesting. You want me to prophesy or to...
If you can, please.
What next? I think from where I sit, I am a very hopeful person. If I was not hopeful, I would not be in EACC. I'm only there because I know that things can change. And when a university like this and young people like yourselves can sit in such a forum because you are desirous of knowing how to practice integrity and ethics, it gives us even more hope that it is actually possible. But having said that, I said in my presentation that ethics and integrity is not a group thing. It is an individual thing. It is an individual choice that you make. So no matter if the 54 million Kenyans choose to go into corruption, unethical conduct, immorality, and all of that, you as an individual, you can say, that is not my route, and I'm not going to go there. And we see it throughout history, men and women who made those kinds of choices. So we are not going to be ethical because the society is ethical, but we are going to be ethical because it is right. It is the right thing to do. So the future is on you and I making the choice and making the decision that even if all my friends choose a different direction, I am going to choose the right path. One of the nations that is quoted a lot, especially in our circles of ethics and integrity, is Singapore. Just before I went into EACC, I was reading the story of Singapore, and I was very surprised. Singapore was more corrupt than we are today.
It was saying something.
Yeah?
And that's saying something.
That says something. It was so bad that there is no service you could get from a government official without paying something. Government officials were the ones who were peddling drugs very openly. I mean, think of bad things. It was found in Singapore. And this is where young people, you come in. 6 young university students, graduates, decided that they are going to change Singapore. It sounded like a dream. But the 6 of them then went into politics, got elected, and one of them, whom they had agreed between themselves that would be the prime minister, actually won, Lee Kuan Yew. And the 6 of them decided first and foremost that they were not going to be involved in any kind of unethical conduct. And they also made a covenant with each other that if any of us gets involved, they are out. And in that time, there was no tolerance. That's how they were able to transform that country to what it is today. So, in fact, one of them actually was caught in a corrupt deal, and he shot himself. He actually committed suicide. When the word went out to the prime minister that this is what he had done, before he was called, he actually wrote a note and say, I am too ashamed to face the future. And he shot himself. That is how committed they were, if that is commitment, to this covenant they had. And that's how 6 people, not a million, 6 young people transformed the country to what is now a reference point across the globe. So we are certainly more than 6 in this room. So when you ask me what next, I have a lot of hope that if just those of us who are here, or just a small fraction of us who are here, make a decision that I am going to follow the right path. And it starts with small things. Again, I talk about when I do training in leadership. I say that it doesn't start with big things. It starts with small things for those of us who drive, like stopping at the traffic lights. You know, just such a small thing. In fact, the other day I calculated, because now the traffic lights even have time. So you know how long you're going to be around. The ones in Nairobi. The highest that I have seen is 90 seconds. The highest that I've seen on our streets is 90 seconds. How long is 90 seconds? 1.5 minutes. Surely where you are going, wait for 1.5 minutes. But because our mindset is that it's like jumping the lights is a good thing. So when you see it is red, you accelerate, you know? Because in your mind you are going to be late. And you are going to be late for only 1.5 minutes. When you begin to think that way, it helps you to begin to do some things that are ethical, to conduct yourself in an ethical manner, and so on and so forth. So there's hope for Kenya. When I see you here, I'm very hopeful.
Thank you.
Because
Thank you.
This group here is going to change this country. It doesn't require 1 million of us. It doesn't matter how bad up there may be, if that's what we think it is. It doesn't matter how bad it is down here. In 2003, those of us who are around, we saw that it can happen. Because that's the time we have heard of Michuki rules.
Yeah.
The matatu industry was worse than it is today. Worse. They were a law to themselves. They treated us like garbage. I mean, it was very bad. So when Michuki came and said, you are going to use a seat belt in a matatu, we laughed. I mean, it's like you're going to fish from where, you know? But it happened.
It did.
People traveled with seat belts in matatus in the city center. roads were reclaimed that had been taken by the big guys. When we saw the one big house, it was 100 million house in Runda being brought down by that thing. We knew that life has changed, you know. I remember that time. Let me just finish with this. When people saw that house in Runda being brought down, the people in Githurai started demolishing their own houses so that they could salvage the materials. Yes, they started demolishing for them. They say, kama naweza kuangusha ile. They were demolishing their own houses, removing the mabatis and taking away because they were on the road reserves. So it really takes just a few people who are determined, who are serious, and this country will go to the next level. I'm very hopeful myself.
Thank you so much. Please, a round of applause. I would like to now throw this part of the program to the audience. If you have a question, I can see there's already one hand up. There's another one. I'd like to request if I can get someone to help me just make this mic go around to the audience. So please make sure your question is very brief and very specific to the guest and what you want to ask about. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Faith Margaret, and I have a question towards Dr. Oginde. Yeah. You've talked about how corruption, anti-corruption and integrity is the role of an individual, yeah? And that if society being corrupt does not necessarily mean that now we all have to be corrupt. However, there are people who are inspired to maintain integrity by the actions that are being taken up against those who are engaging in corruption. So my question is, what role are you guys playing in ensuring that the high-profile cases of corruption are being dealt with? Because sometimes it feels like you have a higher chance of being caught for corruption if you're below as compared to if you're above, because the excuse that will be given is that the evidence was not enough. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I hope you have noted that, Bishop. Yeah, okay. You will answer them. So any other question from the audience, we'll just take them cumulatively, and then we'll answer them at the same time.
Thank you very much, Dr. Oginde. One is to acknowledge that the year 2003, I happened to be in a class and in East Africa School of Theology. I happened to have done some theology, and you happen to have come for 1 week. Oh. Those many years, huh? My name is Dr. David Kabera Mudondeki. Okay. I'm a police officer. Correct? it is true. You know, these are my students, but they don't know I'm a deputy commandant right now at National Police Leadership Academy. Now, I remember you came and you were teaching us on the book of Jeremiah. Can you remember?
Yes.
And and you had a week, and then we do kushanga changa, tukakupea pesa. We gave you some money, then you refused. You remember those days? We were giving you fuel, but you said no. I remember those days. Huh? Can you remember that time? Huh? So I have listened to you many times because you are a great man. And I am also a trainer in the area of ethics. And I am so sad because of the police where I work. Because sometimes we can't manage them because they are department, like your department, which can handle the issue of traffic. These are the people who are destroying our name many a times. And even today I was commenting and I was asking myself, if I'm given the Inspector General, I'll deal with these people. Because again, I felt they are taking money, and all of us, we can see, and we can't do anything. So I wanted to understand, because this is so open, what are some of you what are you doing again on this? Because one, it is obvious, everybody is seeing them, and I hope you have personnel who can handle these people every day, or you track them. Last year, 2 years ago, I was the chairman at Lumakanda, that is Kakamega, during the recruitment. I was the chairman, and I did recruit some officers to the police officer, to be police officers. I remember that day I was being given about 1.5 million, 1.5 million, but then I refused. If you come from Lumakanda, I employed 3 officers free of charge. Sijui kama umetoka huko. So I don't know if you have come from that place. I did that, and people felt like I was a foolish person. And when you are talking about being lonely and how people will even see you and perceive you, it is very true. And sometimes you find it very difficult when you work with people who are very corrupt. That is very true. But then, as you continued giving us the discussion, we found then again, there are also great opportunity. And I want to acknowledge to our students, if you are ethical, finally you'll make it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, Daktari, we have a question from behind there, and another one here at the front from Mr. Moore.
Okay. I want to first appreciate, okay, I will kindly request the cameraman not to point at me because I'm a bit shy. Yes, but I want to appreciate the faculty for giving us this opportunity to even have Dr. Oginde coming here to speak to us personally. It is such a privilege. So my first question is, Dr. Oginde, you mentioned about paragons in our society, such as William Wilberforce. I can even add Martin Luther King and Nelson Mandela, and how they stood up for what is right, how they stood up for values, and they were able to change situations in their country just because they believed in what is right. But in all those unique circumstances, there was always conflict in attaining in what they believed, so that they can change the landscape of their society. So my question is, what is the in-between of standing up for what is right and also protecting your life? Because as we have realized in the Maandamano, the Gen Z stood up and they went to fight against a punitive government, to fight against a punitive bill, and we realized a lot of deaths that came along that. But what are we doing, even, for example, as the institution of anti-corruption, what is it doing to protect young people that whenever they stand up for what is right, they will also be protected and their lives will also be protected? So my second question also, my second question also comes in that I do believe that the older generation passes the baton to the younger generation, so that whatever they have learned, the wisdom that they have, they pass it to the younger generation. But when we have also talked about the employees, my question is, when we look at the society, we are not seeing role models. Even when you look at our screens, we are not seeing role models who stand up for these beliefs that you're saying when we look from the ladder up to down. So I'm trying to ask myself, even the employees, when you go, you have to pay. You have to pay for something. It's a common thing. You pay for something so that you can get a job. If you're a woman, it will be another case. So I'm trying to understand, even as we teach ourselves, what are we doing to our role models who stand for that? Now, because I've been told that my question should be brief, I will finish with this. Now that we are talking about Gen Z, we are a different breed. I do believe that Gen Zs are not rebellious, they're resolute. I do believe that we are not stubborn, we are different. I do believe that we are people who can stand up for values. But do you take this into consideration even as you mentor us? We are people who are of a different generation than the millennials. So I'm trying to ask myself, even as you counter in mentoring the Gen Zs, will we be sitting in panels to be educated? Or is there something different that will cater us so that we can understand ethics in the same similar way that it should be understood? And also to Dr. Oginde, just a personal question. There is a difference between law and morality. There is a small line between law and morality. So could you give us an example in your own line of leadership where you have experienced an ethical dilemma? I'll finish there.
All right. All right. Yeah. I don't think there's any other question apart from here at the front. Okay. Yes. Please be brief because we are running short on time. Thank you.
Thank you to the panelists. And Dr. Oginde, I've been listening to your Monday leadership presentation for quite some time, and it has helped me grow in my leadership. I'm Fanis, I'm Botsi from School of Business, a lecturer. Mine is still on the consistency and just doing the right thing. But the question that I pose is, as much as it is, ethics starts with me, change starts with me. I know there's something that I've been following up for the last 20 years with some of our institution, and I said I will not bribe. 20 years. At least for me, I have means to take care of a number of things. What about those ones who are vulnerable, who are poor, like probably their things have been taken away, and the institutions that are supposed to help them can't do it? Because at times I walk into judiciary and I see the way people are in anguish and I wonder. So as much as it's me, and it takes 20 years, like by the time you're done, nothing is left. What happens to those ones who are poor, who are needy? I just don't know. Yeah.
The final question from Mr. Moore.
Thank you very much. Some good illustrations have been given about real examples of ethical Kenya. 2002, 2012, after the elections, you remember, go back to elections, show us. But it seems we go back, forward, back. If I refer to the last question from the student said indirectly that their generation want more of action than a lot of rhetorics, and it also came clear that they have very high sense of justice and courage. So I have two questions. I start with Kimani. You reached a high level of frustration, and you have very serious tension in your mind about what can really be done to bring this change. Have you ever, now you're a wise man, you're older, you can say it all, it doesn't matter what they think about you. So that this generation, as they bring the change they want for their country, because it's their country, they're going to have children, they're bringing up their children in this country, they're going to work in this country, they're going to change this world, and they want to play the same role with other peers in the developed nations. So what is that advice you'd give? Then to Dr. David, in your office, you landed very rich data of all the reports from Leakey up to your predecessor, with very maybe clear information about what could be done to deal with ethics in this country. And you're a truthful man. I want to believe that perhaps one of the things they looked for in you is what you stand for, being a bishop, being a role model in many ways. From those reports, what is that is not there that you think ethics and anti-corruption, and not only ethics and anti-corruption, all the independence institutions in Kenya, I'm not very sure whether yours is independent, but what is that you can confidently and courageously say, like a policeman like Muthondeki who doesn't fear and say, I think here we need change. What is there that you can say we need to do to change this country? Because we really need people like you who have nothing to lose, but to see this country become better, bring the change that we want. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'd like to, being no other questions from the audience, mara ya kwanza, ya pili, ya tatu, that's enough. I'm being pressured to complete. So please, back to the panelists. I'll start with you, Mr. Kimani, on the question that Mr. Mora has asked you. And then we will now finish up with Dr. Oginde, because you took up the large chunk of the questions from the audience.
To take a lot of time to please repeat. Being my only question from me, I want to answer it as best as possible. What's the question again, please?
From what you would say is, you have seen a lot of bad things happen, and you see a lot of opportunities if we eliminate corruption and all those unethical behaviors. And from when you talked, I saw a lot of tension in you, that if this or that could be done, maybe. So what would be the advice, or what would you say to bring change in this country?
Thank you. It's clearer now. You remember I said it's not a very popular space. When you are one of the few practicing ethics and a person of integrity, you must be patient. It's your pay. And those who didn't practice or work ethically and were people of integrity regret a lot, and especially in their later years in life, if they live long. And you remember I said they don't have long lives. And I'm old enough to know that many have lost their lives, what one would say early. But I'm also sure that I have impacted many people in a way that they have changed their ways and helped others to change. I think the idea should be, or the thing to do is to demonstrate that you are remaining there and that way. It's not only you as a person who has benefited, but even others have benefited. For example, when I was the chairman of the board in a county is the employer of all positions except the CEC. CECs are like CSs, very senior people. Those are political appointees. Those others are recruited by the board. And every time you do somebody a favor, you have denied the right person, the person who is entitled. So when you employ the qualified, that person lives to do as you did to somebody else. So there are fruits to reap towards the end. And the other thing I do a lot of is to talk to groups like this and give my personal example, because even though it might sound like I'm not whistleblowing, it's called blowing my trumpet. And nobody will blow my trumpet. I blow it because it is true, it's ethical, it is a living example. You also help others to to live. And let me also say that even those who do not change do not do so, all of them, because it's a good thing not to change. It is the forces which are there, but they know for sure the day of reckoning is coming sooner than later. And they will pay very heavily beyond what they gained when they did not. Well, everyone knows that. Everyone who is not who is unethical knows that when he or she is not in that position, life will hurt a lot. Especially when you wait to be caught, no matter how long it takes. And to be caught is not necessary to be taken to courts and be jailed. You are already suffering because you don't know. When that door bangs because of the wind, when that phone rings, I don't know, I don't think I'm answering your question, but I want to encourage you. Practice ethics and you'll impact others without knowing. And you yourself, your health and family, at least if nothing else, will enjoy what you have done. And I'm a living example. Dr. here says he thinks I'm his age mate. I can claim my youthful looking, although it might not be my youthful feeling, is a result of lack of stressful and anxious life. So it pays. It pays.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Finally, Dr. Oginde, I can see you have been noting down the questions. I wanted to offer you some help, but I can see you clearly had it on your own.
The questions are quite a number. I don't know that we will be able to answer all of them, but I'll just peruse and answer some of them. Let me start with the common question that was also the first question from our audience on big corruption. Why don't we see the big guys going down? I think that was the first question. Why are we concentrating on the small fish, as they call them? Again, I'll give two perspectives. The first is that by its very nature, big corruption is difficult to fight. Because in the time that I've been in ESCC now for just over 1.5 years, I sit in the committees where we discuss all the corruption cases that we forward for action are discussed thoroughly, whether it is a big corruption or a small corruption, whether it is a forged certificate or a multi-billion project. We sit as a committee. There are several stages it goes through, but the very final stage is where the investigators come to present to us the way they would present the case in court. And we interrogate, we look at all the details, we ask questions to try and see that indeed we have a good case. The reality about big corruption is that they are very carefully planned. They are not, you have not just bumped into someone and they offer you 10,000 shillings and you decide whether to take or not. Big corruption is not like that. Big corruption is carefully, deliberately designed, involving professionals, very well done. So to unravel them is not easy. It's not easy. So the very first one, I remember when I joined the commission and we had sat from 9 o'clock in the morning to 3 o'clock in the afternoon, just going through these cases. By the time I was through, my head was going crazy. And just the very thought of it, actually I left there thinking, how does one do this? Because in the first case that we dealt with was a case where a project that was supposed to be 18 billion, that was the government project, 18 billion, had been escalated to 80 billion, 80. So in my thinking was, even if I'm corrupt, maybe I would add 2 billion, so it becomes 20, you know? 2 billion is still a lot of money, isn't it? But the people we are dealing with are more serious than that. So they are moving this thing from 18 billion to 80 billion. And then the presentation itself that shows you where it was conceived, where it went, and how it went, and how it went. By the time the presentation was through, just showing you the movements and the things and the design, the whole screen was a literal cobweb of lines going here and coming there and going back and going this way and going, some lines going out of the country and coming back. So it is so well thought out, it is so carefully designed that it takes a lot of time and resources to unravel them. That's why you don't hear too many of them, therefore, being unraveled and dealt with. That is on the one hand. On the second, what makes big corruption difficult to fight is that it involves big people. People who are in positions of authority and power. So even after for you to be able to do that, perhaps I should go to the number 3 before I go to number 2 of what makes it difficult. The second thing that I found to be a major obstacle to fighting big corruption, and this may surprise some of you, is the legal framework, the laws that we have in this country. I can say in public, I've said it on TV, our laws are designed to defeat the fight against corruption. That's I can say. So the laws put so many obstacles on the way of fighting big corruption that you would have to jump and jump before you are able to really get these big guys. Because think about the last part of that law. It says that for anybody to be punished for being involved in corruption, it must be proved beyond reasonable doubt. Just those last 2 words, 3 words, beyond reasonable doubt. In other words, you have to go to court and prove beyond proof that this person was involved in corruption. That's where somebody talked about the difference between law and morality. So you and I can see it is so obvious this person was involved, but you can't say it is obvious. We want the law and we want the proof. So for you to get that proof and evidence in a situation where a person is also in position of power and authority, is like our professor here is being investigated for doing something within Riara University. And he is the one to provide you with the information that you need to prove that he did it. Tell me how that will work, you know? So that makes it very difficult because you want to go to his office, collect all the evidence, all the materials, but he is the one in that same office. So that is, I'm just trying to give you a picture. So it is not that EACC, we do not want to fight big corruption. That's what we work on. And we do nail some people in the process. but takes much, much longer. Our friend, a police officer who is here with us, if we see a police officer taking a bribe on the streets, you don't need beyond reasonable doubt. It is very easy. Those are usually the easiest to get, because one of the ways that that we use to get these people is what we call a sting operation, which is known, and those things you see them. Says, for example, somebody wants to get a job like the one he was saying. They are doing recruitment, and he tells this person, bring 300,000, and I'll take you a person. If that person wants us to get him, all he has to say, come to us and tell us, so-and-so has asked me to give 300,000. We will provide you with the 300,000, which you will take to him. And then we nab him. We will have evidence that proves beyond reasonable doubt that he actually asked for that bribe. So you can see how easy and straightforward that case is. That's why you find those small fish. Even if you go to, I come from a fishing community. Catching small fish omena in the lake and the rivers is very easy. Unatupa hivi and you collect a whole lot of them. But to go and pull ambuta from that lake, it can even pull you into the lake itself, yourself. So it is work. So I'm not saying that is not possible. That is something that we are working on, but you should not be frustrated. In that regard, I want to throw a challenge to you. One of the ways to fight big corruption is through public participation, or no, public engagement. There was this case in Eldoret, Uasin Gishu, about the Finland. You remember the Finland story? That is big corruption. It involved hundreds of millions of shillings. That case would not have gone as fast as it has gone if the parents and students who were involved had not come out and made the noise that they made. Because of the noise that they made, it became a matter of public interest, okay? And because now it is a matter of public interest, it makes it much easier for us to get the evidence, to interview the people, the witnesses, and so on, and to expedite that whole process, because the whole public there's an outcry. So no one wants to keep this thing for too long. Everybody wants to pass it on. Now, most of the big corruption, you don't hear any public outcry. You hear so many billions have been taken there, and we do not have that pressure and engagement. Unfortunately, we have come to the place where, as Kenyans, we celebrate the thieves. You know for sure your neighbor, you know where he works, you know how much he may be earning, but he's putting up a whole huge hotel in your neighborhood. And you just say, wow, this guy is bringing development in our area. You know? Why don't you raise an alarm and say, there's somebody here? Write us an email. And by the way, we don't disclose who sends us information. Just send us an email and say, there's a man in our neighborhood. From what I know about him and the kind of things he's doing, I don't know where he's getting his money. That is enough for us to come and begin to do some investigations and just find out. And that way we can be able to deal with some of this corruption. I've taken a little longer there. Let me pick one or two others. I will not be able to answer all of them unless unless you give us more time.
No, I
I
cannot.
realize that time has gone.
No, I cannot give you
But
more
there's a
time.
very significant question that was asked by one of the students behind there. How do we stay safe? You stand for the truth and you could end up in trouble, or you could actually end up with your life being taken. That is in my view, a very significant question. First of all, let's keep in mind, what are we looking for? And what is the best way of going about it? There are situations that will call for sacrifice, and that sacrifice may include the sacrifice of life. We would not be in an independent Kenya if some people did not sacrifice their lives to fight the colonialists. Are we together? But they sacrificed their lives because they felt that we need a free Kenya. They never benefited, but we have benefited. So that is one extreme that requires that we take sacrifice. And that sacrifice can be in your organization. You are working somewhere, you are seeing things are not happening in the right way, and you decide, I cannot take this, I will do something about it. That sacrifice could mean you being sacked from your job. It could mean you being demoted. It could mean you whatever. It is a sacrifice, but it could end up giving people, future generations, a better place to work in. But on the flip side of it, most of the transformation opportunities that we have do not require that kind of sacrifice. There are many things that we can do if we apply wisdom. Apply wisdom so that you can live to fight another one. You do not want to sacrifice your life at the first opportunity. But looking at each situation, asking yourself, what is the best way of dealing with this situation? And as God gives you wisdom in order for you to know how to act in every situation that comes your way. If you go to your boss, for example, and confront them and say, I know you are a thief, and then you are sacked, will you blame anybody? You'll say you have sacrificed your life. That's what I call lack of wisdom. Is there a way that you can still achieve the same objective by using wisdom? I use two people in the Bible. Permit me for using the Bible too much, but that's where I spend most of my life. Many of us would know a man called John the Baptist. John the Baptist was a preacher, a prophet. And in his time, the king or the governor, Herod took his brother's wife, Herodias. And John the Baptist went and said, you cannot do this. This is wrong, this is evil. And he rebuked these guys. Now, the person who was angry with him was not Herod. The person who was angry with him was the one who had been taken, the wife, Herodias. So she was so angry that she wanted to see what he can do about John. So when her daughter, danced very nicely during one of the parties, and the father, Herod, had said, whatever you ask, I'll give you. When she had done so well, went to the mother and asked, what should I ask for? The mother was very happy to say, please ask for John the Baptist's head. And John the Baptist was murdered. His head was removed and given on a platter. Was removed. John never lived to preach another sermon. In a similar situation, there's King David. I think you know King David. Most of us would know King David. King David also takes somebody's wife. And not only takes his wife, but murders, kills the husband. And God is angry with David and sends another prophet called Nathan to go and rebuke David for what he had done. Now, Nathan goes to David. David is the king. Nathan is a prophet. Okay? So he's thinking, how do I handle this situation? So he goes to the king and he tells the king, now, oh king, live forever. I have a story for you. There was this man, a very rich man, who had sheep and cattle and everything, and he was very rich. And next to him lived a very poor man with one lamb, which was his only livelihood. So one time this rich man had visitors, and the rich man wanted to slaughter for his visitors. Now instead of picking his many sheep and goats that he had, he went, took the lamb that belonged to this, the one and only lamb that belonged to this man, and slaughtered for his guests. David was a man of justice. When he heard that, he was angry. He said, that cannot happen in my kingdom. Anybody who has done that, ataona chamtemakuni. So Nathan told him, you are the man. What could he do? He had passed his own judgment. And Nathan was a prophet for 3 other kings. Wisdom. Both of them achieved, actually, John the Baptist never achieved, but David went and repented, and he was forgiven. The matter was dealt with. So sometimes, with our zeal and commitment and so on, sometimes we don't stop to think, what is the best way of dealing with this issue? Is there another way of dealing with this issue so that we can deal with the matters of corruption? Because they are dangerous and they can be dangerous. They can be. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Please, can I have a final round of applause for the guests? You may take your seats. Thank you so much. That has been a very interesting session.
What if you are poor? Poverty is no excuse.
That's a good way to actually end it. Poverty is no excuse. So very quickly, I'd like to welcome Mr. Andrew Mathenge to the front, who will now carry over the next parts of the program. I have been your MC and moderator, Caleb Nyaga. Thank you so much for listening and sticking around. Yes, asanteni sana. So, Mr. Andrew, okay.
No, I'm not Andrew, but I just wanted to, there's a question that was asked, and I think partly was directed to us about how do we engage the Gen Zs in these conversations of ethics. And I remember she asked panel sessions the best way to engage Gen Zs. Please give us feedback. We are here to listen. We would want to know if you want to have this done a different way. Please share your feedback with Andrew on how we can engage you more meaningfully so that we advance these conversations. I just thought of letting that open. Thank you.
Wasn't that informative? Yes? We need more engagement, right? I feel so. So I believe we are going to request for another session, perhaps a more round, maybe beside some fire, tukuwe na time mob kidogo with something to eat. Na nyama choma hivi, as we bring out all the issues that we need to bring out. Mine is very simple. It's to give a vote of thanks. First of all, to Dr. Oginde Thank you so much, sir, for coming to grace this occasion. I believe our students are going to leave here with some real good nuggets. I can see Mr. President is sitting right next to Joyce. So please exchange numbers. And the deputy, they've just made sure. Yes. Yes. So thank you very much, sir, for coming to join us. Mr. Justin Kimani, thank you very much for joining us as well. Mr. Kimani comes from a group called Ethics and Leadership Network. Men and women of integrity in this country who are looking to change the narrative about integrity. They do business and they talk about all that one needs to do so that you can live that life. He told you very well, long life comes out of it. And that's what I want to take home myself. I also want to thank our management with the Vice Chancellor right here for allowing us to bring this on board and have this conversation and see how we want to synergize and use that energy that you Gen Zs and millennials have so that we can take this conversation to greater levels. Also for other partners who are not here but have been very instrumental in this, we have a network called the Edu Collaborative Network that we work with, and they have facilitated a lot of these activities. In fact, we have a program with them that we are running here at the university where we are training students and staff on how to give voice to values, because everything will start from our values so that we can be able to stand up and be able to be counted as people of integrity. Again, I also want to thank EACC because their education unit sent us 3 persons to do a sensitization session last week, and so we began a conversation. Hopefully it will end up with an integrity club being formed, and we will continue that work together with them. So please take our thank yous to them again. Finally, to you students for agreeing to be part of this session. If it was not for you being here, then we would be doing nothing. Actually, the whole reason we come to the university is because of you guys. So it's an important part for your journey. We are just hoping to ignite in you something that can help you to make our country better than it is today. Of course, to our very able MC and moderator, a hand clap for him. I told him, come and do this because even your giftings, your talent will be experienced and shown out there. So we are so grateful. Thank you, media team. This was live on YouTube, by the way, and it will continue to be there. To continue to be there for people to continue listening and following so that you can pick information, all that you need. So once again, thank you very much. Mine was to give that vote of thanks, and I surely look forward to another session of this kind taking place right here in the university. Now, in the interest of time, we have, and there's no money involved. We do have a gift for our guests to appreciate them. Because we want them to come back again and to have something on their desk that they remember, I was at Riera University, I gave a talk, and I would be able to come back. So, peace. If you see where the dean is sitting, there is 2 or 3 gifts. And where is Denia? Yes, the 2 of you were to do this part. So we have 2 gifts for the 2 gentlemen, very quickly. Come with the 3 of them, it's okay. So it's just a little branded item for you to take away so that you can remember that you're here with us. Dr. Oginde, kindly, please, is the Deputy President, Riera University. She hands over something to you. Yes. A hand clap, please. Yes. Yes. Then the near here is a student in the School of Business. She's going to hand over to Mr. Kemani a gift. There was also a third gift.
From an ethical point of view, it should be below how much? 20K. 20K, oh, that's high.
Then finally, I want to, the three persons who came to do the education talk, we didn't give them anything, but we thought it would be good for you guys to carry something for them. Please, Anne, kindly. The label is for Joyce to be able to know who they belong to. So Joyce Munene, the EACC in charge of protocol, thank you so much. Please take to the three persons. Rose, I think I'd put the names there. Yes, on a small note. So with that, I think we really come to a close of this session, but we close it with a group photo, which we normally take at the front of the building. And then after the group photo, we have refreshments. Even for you students, the cafeteria is waiting for you with something to bite. My guests, I'll take them to the boardroom for a quick refreshment if they are willing, so that we can, before we wind up the day. So that is it. Glad to have had this, and we look forward to a similar day. A round of applause for everyone. So we'll move to the right.